We could go on practically forever if we tried to identify and discuss every single one of them, so I'm going to limit myself to just 5 broad topics: anonymity, missing the communication context, privacy, everlasting information, and credibility. I'll define each of these topics in more detail as we go. Interpersonal issue number 1 is anonymity. People tend to feel anonymous when they're online, and they tend to feel like they're interacting with anonymous electronic strangers rather than flesh and blood peers. This anonymity can be empowering in a way. It allows some shy people to discuss problems or concerns that they may never have discussed otherwise. Sometimes these discussions can be productive or even life-changing. But anonymity clearly has its disadvantages too. For some reason, anonymous people will say terrible, inflammatory things that they would never say in person to somebody who is just standing there. It seems that anonymity empowers our whole selves, both the good and the bad parts of us. Countless online conversations have ground to a halt or deteriorated into angry name-calling because the anonymous participants in the conversation treated each other as faceless strangers rather than respected flesh and blood peers. This is a serious problem. Remember that people online are people. As a rule of thumb, you should be more polite online, not less polite. Anonymity is an illusion anyway. Unless you have a high level of computer and networking knowledge, everything you do online can potentially be traced back to you. Your fake login name or your fake email account may make you anonymous to other casual computer users in an online comment thread, but they won't protect you from a high-level hacker or from a full-fledged federal investigation. You would be best served to assume that everything you do online can be traced back to you. Interpersonal issue number 2 is missing the communication context. The physical context of communication is very important to getting a message across. Facial expressions, gestures, and other body language can have a profound influence on the meaning of any given sentence. So can your tone of voice. Consider the sentence, "Why did you leave the party early?" It could mean a lot of different things depending on how you read it. Why did you leave the party early? Or, why did you leave the party early? Or, why did you leave the party early? Can you think of other ways that you could deliver that sentence so that it takes on other meanings? The point I'm getting at is that all of those subtle differences in body language and tone of voice that we rely on in face-to-face communication, those disappear when we begin to rely on written communication online. Sure, we can use capital letters or emojis to add emotion and emphasis to our writing, but those tools can only go so far. It's incredibly easy to misread somebody's intention in their writing, especially if we ourselves are cranky or suspicious when we're reading their writing. This is probably another reason why so many online discussions deteriorate into name-calling. The participants in the discussion may already disagree on some point, which puts up their guard. Once their guard is up, they tend to read each other's statements in the worst way possible. When you're reading what somebody else has written online, it's a good idea to read it in the best light possible. If you aren't sure how they meant to say something, it's better to ask for clarification or to just assume the best than to automatically default to assuming the worst. Interpersonal issue number 3 is privacy. We have talked about privacy a lot in previous lessons, but the basic ideas bear repeating. Nothing you do online is really private. Now, institutions like banks have a lot of legal and economic motivation to keep your information private, but even powerful institutions like banks can't always safeguard your privacy. Not perfectly, anyway. When you're dealing with regular people who don't have legal or economic motivations to guard your privacy, then the situation is much worse. Your friends and family, they have social motivations to guard your privacy. They want to get along with you, and they probably want what's best for you. Social motivations can be incredibly strong, but social motivations can also change quite suddenly. All it takes is one moment of anger or weakness, and a friend could forward your private information to hundreds of people. The best mindset is probably to simply accept that nothing you share electronically is really 100% private. If you have pictures, secrets, or opinions that you want to keep to yourself, then you probably just shouldn't share them electronically. Interpersonal issue number 4 is everlasting information. The internet is made up of millions and millions of computers spread across the entire globe. When something gets published on the internet, it tends to end up on several computers in different locations, and over time, there's really no telling where that file will be copied or where it will end up being saved. For this reason, it's extraordinarily difficult to delete anything that has been published online. Even private files like emails or photos uploaded to social media accounts usually persist in some form on some computer somewhere long after the user decides to delete those files. So be careful about what you upload online because, frankly, the internet is forever. Interpersonal issue number 5 is credibility. Can you trust what you read online? Well, that's a trick question. It invites a simple yes or no response, but the best answer would be more complex than that. Some things written online are trustworthy, others are not. There are many different communication media: newspapers, books, letters, emails, instant messages, websites, telegraphs, smoke signals, face-to-face conversations, and many more. Any one of those media could be credible or not. Credibility isn't tied all that closely to media choices. It's tied much more closely to who said it, what they said, and under what circumstances they said it. Let's imagine that we have a friend named Cindy. Let's say Cindy gets this email from her grandma. Can she trust it? The subject line says, "Come to the family reunion." Dear Cindy, I'm supposed to spread the word that there's going to be a family reunion at the park by my house on August 12th this year. So, this is your invitation. Please come. Love, Grandma. Yeah, Cindy can probably trust that email. If there was going to be a family reunion, Grandma would probably know, and it's difficult to imagine why somebody would hack into Grandma's email account to send out fake family reunion notices, so we can probably safely assume that the message is genuine. Now let's imagine that Cindy gets another email from her grandma. Can she trust this email? The subject line says, forward, 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 reply, reply, forward, forward, OMG, the moon! Dear Cindy, I know you like science, so this made me think of you. Love, Grandma. Fact of science. Citizens, make sure you watch the sky on August 12th this summer. On that day, and on that day only, Mars should appear almost as big as the moon. It's a fact of science that once about every 637 million years, the orbits of Earth and Mars swing extraordinarily close to each other, bringing the red planet practically within shouting distance of the terra firma. Don't miss out, unless you can wait another 637 million years. Sincerely, Dr. Joseph von Doctormann, Chief of Spatial Studies, NASA. Cindy probably should not trust this email. There are a lot of problems with it. For example, how could Mars, which normally appears as a small reddish dot in the night sky, get close enough to Earth to look moon-sized? And if such things were possible, wouldn't you expect Mars to approach the Earth slowly over a period of many nights, looking bigger and bigger each night, instead of suddenly showing up moon-sized on one night? And doesn't Dr. Joseph von Doctormann sound like a made-up name? And we can tell from the string of forwards and replies in the subject heading that this is a chain letter, and chain letters are frequently full of misinformation. And if you were interested in science, and if NASA astronomers had really made such an extraordinary announcement, wouldn't you expect to have heard about it sooner from another source, somebody besides Grandma? Clearly, this email is suspicious. So you can trust some things that you read online, but not others. The ability to analyze a document for credibility is an important skill, and it's a skill that you should continue to develop for the rest of your lives, really. But you can't make blanket assumptions about everything you read online being trustworthy, or about nothing you read online being trustworthy. You'll have to take things as they come and analyze each situation with your own best judgment. Okay, that's all I have for you on interpersonal issues. We've introduced 5 broad topics: anonymity, missing the communication context, privacy, everlasting information, and credibility. Clearly, there are more issues than those that we've discussed here. We have merely scratched the surface. Try to think of some other issues that come from online interactions. How can the lessons that you've learned in this class help you to deal with them? If you think about it for a while, I'm sure that you can come up with a number of other issues and potential hazards, and I'm sure that you could develop many thoughtful ways to handle them.